Keep living the adventure. Axis of Awesome.
Incoming transmission.
What is up, adventurers? Welcome to Who's in the Shop live stream tonight. We have got a great guest, but before we get going, let's go over a few of the housekeeping items I wanted to talk about. So this tonight marks the last live stream I'm doing for the spring. It's been awesome. The reception has been great, and thank you to all the guys who have came on so far this year: Luca Toys, Jim Egner, Murray Corrigan, Stacey Armstrong, Rick Bradshaw, and Sean Huckster, even you, Steve Stovall, with your terrible internet. I look forward to talking to you at some point in time. But hey, guys, I really appreciate it. The reception has been awesome. And if you guys would like to come on the show, anybody out there, shoot me an email. If you have somebody you'd like to see me have a conversation with, I'm always willing to talk to just about anybody. That being said, we will be back in August, and I've got already a couple guests lined up, and I'm working on some others, and it's going to be awesome. So what else? I was looking over this. Let's see. June, we won't be posting hardly any videos. We'll be doing some shorts, just showcasing some of the stuff I've been working on. So you won't see any long form videos on Tuesdays or Thursdays. So just be aware of that. And then Japanese July kicks off, where I'm going to be doing some previews of some Japanese imports that I got on my Syndico auctions. So that's what's going on in June and July. And like I said, we'll be back in August. Don't forget to check out the 4th of July special, Columbia, which is going to be super, super cool. I hope you guys are going to enjoy that one. And this coming Monday, I will be on the Paul Knapp Show. And then Tuesday, I will be on the Toylete channel with Ed and the rest of the gang talking about Yojo June, as well as some other stuff coming up. So that's what's going on. And like I said, this is the last live stream of the spring, and it is a banger because I have a guest who I think everybody knows, and I think 99.9999% of the people in our hobby have purchased one or many things off of this guy. He's a legend. He's one of the guys who keeps our hobby going, probably one of the most important people in our hobby, and that is Mr. Greg Brown of Cotswold Collectibles. What's up, brother?
Well, one, I feel humbled that I made it in the spring session, man. Holy cow, I didn't know that. But it's just awesome to be on here, man, to be honest with you. You and I've communicated for years. And then I found out that you were doing a live stream, and I was like, well, hell, man, I'd like to be on a live stream with you.
It's awesome. I appreciate you coming on, man. I was sitting there thinking the other day when I was prepping this thing, you and I go way back, probably to the Facebook days several years ago, probably 2012, 2013 is when I kind of first kind of started interacting with you. And I think I even traded some stuff with you at the time. And
Probably. I send stuff to people where, I believe in a thing called Joe Karma. So I've always been about that. But yeah. Well, that, and we also were growing beards, and I was always sharing Fear of the Beard with you and stuff like that. Of
yeah,
course, yours puts mine to shame, but I'm a couple years older than you. I can't grow as quickly as you can.
Yours looks a little more gray than mine, or is that blonde? I don't know which.
No, my friend, it is gray.
I'm working on gray. I got this little skunk patch that grows on one side, but hopefully it all goes gray one of these days. I don't like the salt and pepper look. It makes me look weird sometimes.
Well, it's brown right here, but then it's gray all around. So it looks like I actually have like a Jewish Hasidic beard or something like that. So,
you should grow the sides down.
Yeah,
that's what I kind of work on.
Get the little curls and put the hat on.
Absolutely. You would probably look like a natural. I look like a caveman, so I'm hairy all over. But so, man, what's been going down?
Dude, gosh, man, it's just been crazy. You and I were talking earlier about, the tariffs and everything and how it's had a reaction with us. Because Cotswold's been around shit, man. We were founded in '89, so what is that, over 35 years now? And we have a factory over there that we've been working with for over 20 years, and they have all of our tooling, and we cut steel, and we have our bodies made there and all these other parts. And when the tariff started going cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, we had to really kind of watch what we were bringing in. And unfortunately, I got tapped a couple of times. But our Elite Brigade body, we've been making that for decades now. We get that made at the factory, and we got some in before it really got too crazy when it got up to about 125 or 145 tariff fee, which was nuts. And now it's down to 30%, which I'll take 30% over 125 any day. So we told the factory, because we're about down to our last 100 Caucasian bodies, and I think we're down to our last 30 African American bodies.
Wow.
And so I told him, I was like, hey man, push this thing through. Fortunately, the Caucasian bodies are already made. They just send them to us, but the African American bodies, they haven't produced them. And I just sent him an email today. And I was like, how soon can you turn this bad boy around? Because I think we're in 30 days into a 90-day reprieve. And the Caucasian bodies sell, I would say 4-to-1 what the African American bodies sell, which is strange to me, because the African American bodies, the vintage ones, as you know, they go bad so quickly.
Yeah, I know.
And but we got the bodies coming in. We were super low on tall brown boots, if you can believe it. And so we got more of those coming in. Yeah. And then we've been out of the Ed head, which is, basically the 1960s African American head, sculpt, our version. And so we did a production run of those. So those will be coming in. But it's funny because, people kind of give us a hard time, and they're like, why are you out so many times? And part of it's because we run a just-in-time inventory. And sometimes they just don't arrive when we plan it. And so we'll be out of stuff and such like that. But I just heard on the news that China's talking to the US again, so maybe something will pull off. But we've been very shrewd in what we do. And one of the saving graces, as you well know, is, back when I worked for Tina, we put the Made in America program into effect, which was my baby. And I think we have 300 or 400 SKUs now of stuff that is made in the United States. We have stuff that is made in Canada, Warwick, Oregon, old school. I've known Murray forever. Never knew what Murray looked like until I saw him on the videos. And I'm like, that's what Murray looks like. I've never met the guy.
What a Canadian looks like. It's funny. I always thought the Canadians looked like the two characters from South Park.
Yeah, the little, yeah.
Just kidding, Murray.
But it was so great because I remember Murray going back to the days before I even worked for Cotswold, and to be able to work with him and to be able to see him and talk to him. I think I got to talk to him at one of Paul's things. I can't remember, but him, and then Rob and Doug Humphrey, they started Tripwire Toys many years ago in California. Now he's a retired fireman living in Oregon, and his sandbags, we can't keep those things in stock. And so that was the thing I wanted to do, is I wanted to reach out to the earlier custom makers, because when I got back into collecting was about 97, 98. So I made the G.I. Joe convention in San Antonio, which was a custom maker's dream. I mean, we had Paul Ivy with Tripwire Tours, we had Polo Moreno with Ape Joe, we had Rob and Doug from Tripwire, we had Augie, Augie, I always call him Augie. It's Augie. It's Augie. Now he's with Battle Gear. Back in the day, he was with Regimentals. And then a really great couple that did some phenomenal work back in the day, and I became really good friends with, was Soldiers Through Time. That was Paul and his wife, Paula Nama. And that's it. Just, I mean, you were just surrounded by greatness back in that time.
Yeah.
Because 80, 98, 97, I think Hall of Fame was out there. We were on the cusp of Classic Collection. 21st was just dipping their toe at the time. So it was just right at a really great time to, for that show. And I've never been to a show since that had all of those people together again like that. And but that's what sparked my whole collecting bug, back again, because I've always said I've had the best of both worlds, in my opinion. I was born in 71, so I had Atomic Man, I had Eagle Eye Commander, I had the Intruders and stuff like that. Then I went into Super Joe, and I don't care what people say about Super Joe, I love Super Joe.
Yeah, it's a cool line.
It's a very cool line. I wish it had expanded a little bit more, but it is what it is. And then 82 came around, and I loved it, man. I mean, by then I was collecting Star Wars. I was becoming the size to go with. And then G.I. Joe came out, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. And then they had a comic book, and I was like, oh, sweet. And then they had the cartoon. I was like, oh my God, it's the trifecta of action figures, And so I've been pretty happy with that. But yeah, I just at 98, man, I just went full blown cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs into that thing. And that's the reason why flash forward to 2025, and I'm still working with these guys that are custom makers. That they just have a love for the hot. Murray's work is phenomenal. I'll send him something. I sent him an MP5, and I said, can you make me a rig? And he made me an MP5 rig, that you can hold the MP5 underneath with like a trench coat or whatever. And but then it's like, got a guy down in Venezuela who makes scuba suits.
Yeah, they're beautiful.
Henry, phenomenal pieces. And then we had Felipe, which was Luca Borbonocos, who lived in Brazil. I was working with him forever. And then he got out, and then Sydney Masaru Oda got in with Granga, basically took the tooling and not the tooling, but the designs. And he's been phenomenal, because we've worked on a lot of projects together, and he makes some stuff, and it's just like, and so it's just this whole family, or this whole community that is across the world, with Spain and France and England, and for a while we had Portugal with Wolfpack. But I was just like, what? I got to find people who could sew. I found it's a lot harder to find somebody who can sew. You and I were talking about, Kathy before. Kathy is one of the few. She's done some work for me. Project R. Do you remember Project R at all?
I do remember them.
Yeah. They were doing stuff, and when they retired, I mean, it's kind of like Obi-Wan Kenobi. You could hear it growing across the universe when they stepped down. And but I've been very lucky, because I landed two people who could sew for me, and they both had their talents. And then just recently, when after the tariff thing kind of went cuckoo, I was like, oh crap, I got to pick up my game and try to find some more people. And I found 3 people. And what's amazing is one of those people, her mom used to be a sample seamstress at Hasbro back in the 80s.
Get out of town.
No, I'm dead serious. And she taught her daughter everything she knows.
Wow.
And yeah, and I sent her just the basic, jacket and pants. But I sent her a vintage green beret set. And I was like, let's see what she can do with a green beret set. Dude, dude,
Like, is it tight?
it's tight. It's gonna be tight.
That's
So
awesome. You know,
yeah.
that's what I was going to show you. Let me jump over here and grab it. You know, I bought Matt Squatch's 60th anniversary set
Hmm.
and got Sydney's.
Yeah.
This is a beautiful set. I'm getting ready to have a review drop for it, but I know you deal with Matt all the time. But
Yeah, he lives down the road from me.
yeah, Enos, Texas, right? When I got this in the mail, I'm like, where the hell did this thing come from? But I remember I ordered it from him. But yeah, to have a reproduction or almost, set like this is absolutely amazing. The fact that you found somebody that's going to make that
Yeah.
is awesome, right?
Yeah, Matt, when he showed that to me, and I was like, damn, I'm gonna have to wait a little bit. I always try to give everybody a little grace period if they do something that's similar.
For sure.
And what's funny, it reminds me of Stovall, who apparently doesn't have internet out in Kentucky.
Yeah, no
He
kidding.
he came to me was it two I think it was 2 years ago when he was doing the Spy Island themed show. And he was like, "Hey man, I'm going to be doing the Spy Island officers or soldiers or whatever." And I'm like, "Shoot, man," because I was working with the lady, and if you remember, I mean, we came out with it, and we'll come out with it again. You know, we did the orange suit, we did
Yep.
the blue suit, we did the red suit with the Chinese communist hats and everything like
Yep.
that.
Great looking
And so,
sets.
yeah, and the lady who did those hats, she nailed it, boom, right out of the park. But when Steve was like, "Yeah, I'm going to be doing the Spy Islands soldiers," I'm like, "Crap, man!" And then he showed me the pictures. I'm like, "Oh, thank God you're not book accurate. You're just kind of doing an homage." Because I mean, I had like 6 months worked into it, and I generally don't talk about the stuff I work on until it's like right there.
I know. Yeah.
But
I
but
feel it. Yeah.
Matt's hit me a couple of times where I'm like, I would say 2 times where I'm like, crap, man, I gotta scrap this for a little bit and put it back on there. And so when I saw the green beret, I was like, all right. But I mean, it's a cool green beret. Don't get me wrong. I like
It
that
is.
he used the right colors, and he was one of a few people that actually paid homage to the 60th anniversary of Hasbro. Not Hasbro. Screw them. GI Joe.
Right.
Hasbro literally forgot about us, and
Yeah.
so. But he did some really good sets. Steve did some really good sets. Oh gosh, dog it! I'm feeling bad. Who's up in New York? Who did that
Third
welder
Sons built
set?
Third
Huh?
Sons. Did Third Sons do one?
I don't know. I don't know if Paul did one.
I can't remember
He
who else
might
did
have.
one
I
in New
didn't
York.
know about it. Who's the guy up in New York? Oh shoot, he plays guitar. He did a reproduction window box like the 1960s, and it was a set that Hasbro was going to do,
Oh, maybe
but it was
somebody in the
like,
comments knows.
huh? Maybe so. It
Maybe
it was
so.
like a jumpsuit and welder's equipment and everything like that, and he had it in Kentucky last year. And he's going to kill me because I'm forgetting his name.
I'm
But
with you.
the thing was, it was, and I've always said this, it's the fans that keep the hobby alive. And I just thought it was amazing. We did the military police series that we did to commemorate the 60th anniversary, as well as the Shore Patrol.
Right.
We were going to get the Air Force one. We didn't get it done in time. We're still going to do it. In fact, I've got everything with the exception of instead of going the Air Force dress uniform originally came with like a powder blue shirt and then the blue jacket and pants. And I never liked how it fit. So the one we're doing is going to have a powder blue shirt dickie with the tie.
Ooh,
So it's
nice.
so it's going to fit a little bit better. And then we'll have, and it's not going to be an air patrol. It's just going to be the officers, the Air Force officers. So and it's going to have. We're using Third Son Books insignia that they have, and then we already have our hats and stuff. So we're pretty excited about that.
What
So
was the Dallas Fort Worth show? what's the exclusives going to be this year? Is it a Navy? Is it a naval guy or an officer? Right?
It's a it's a naval officer. I think it's like a first lieutenant. Which the reason we went with that was of that particular rank was because of Top Gun. Because
Ooh,
that's what Maverick's rank was, or they whatever those guys were. That set started out as being a dress whites uniform.
okay.
And so I work closely with the club, the DFW JoJo Collectors Club there. And they're like, can we do white? And I'm like, I can, but the problem is we don't have white dress shoes, nor do we have the white officer's cap. And they're like, what can you do? And I said, well, I can do a naval khaki summer dress. And so that's where we came up with that, which is it's a short sleeve dress shirt, white t-shirt underneath, khaki slacks, dress shoes, an officer's cap, and then it can be swapped out for an officer's jacket. Oh, and there's a belt on the pants, an officer's jacket with a shirt dicky, and then the tie. That's how we got the idea to do that for the Air Force guy, and then the cap. I wanted to include the saluting hand, and that's when I realized we don't have any saluting hands right now.
You don't have any?
No, we don't. My inventory system management is just the best out there. And yeah, I know. That's how we figure it out. When you hear somebody go shit in the back room, you're like, oh, we're out of something.
Well, I'm gonna tell you what, you probably, if you could hear the amount of shit from all of us out here, we're getting on there to buy something, and we're like, you shit, it's so it's out, shit, I'm sure you know that because you probably get emails.
There's a guy by the name of Dave Canner. He's always haranguing me about it, and he's newer. Some of the other guys kind of know what's going on, and he was like, well, why can't you keep anything in stock? And I'm like, do you know how many SKUs we have? But it's like the shirt dickies. We I have one lady who sells those shirt dickies for me, and then we found the fabric for the World War II parachute dickie, the camouflage parachute. And man, that thing just took off like a chicken on acid out the door. And so then I had to go buy more fabric and send it to her. And so we try to gauge how much we have and how quickly it'll sell. And that's even more reason why we've picked up these 3 new people to sew for us, is because the 2 ladies who sew for me, they're retired. They got grandkids, and I've messaged them. I'm like, hey, listen, I'm sorry, I need you to make some more dickies. She goes, well, I'm not done with the other dickies. And I'm like, yeah, I know. So that's why we're going to kind of redistribute the load, so we can kind of turn a little bit more quickly, because the majority of the cloth items, in fact, almost all the cloth items you're seeing that we're coming out with, we're either buying them, we brought in some Third Son Books, some of their pieces, but most of the pieces we have here are ones that we make under our, that's under our brand. We're making here in the United States, South Dakota. I think the other one's in Ohio. One's in Boston, Mass. One is in like Delaware. They're all spread across. Not a single. I can't find a single one in Texas. You think you'd find somebody who could sew here?
You would think, right? It's a big state.
It's a huge state. But the problem I run into every time is I'll find somebody. I was at a farmer's market about a month ago, and I had these 2 sweet old ladies there, and they had some beautiful work. And I was like, do you do doll work? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, yeah, one step closer. And I was like, can you make an outfit for Barbie? Because I never say G.I. Joe, because they always look at me. So I was like, can you make an outfit for Barbie? And they're like, no, we can't. I'm like, oh, you're dead to me. Go away.
Really?
Yeah, they couldn't do it. But yeah, and then even I ran into people who are. This is how I find people. I'm not. I've already talked about it before, I think, on our page. I go to Etsy.
Yeah.
And I look for people.
Yeah.
And I found one lady. She lived like in Czechoslovakia or Poland, and she did some beautiful sleeping bags, and she did these little beautiful pop-up tents. They looked really good. And she had this camouflage that I've never seen before, and they were a little bit higher. I think that my price retail might have been $39.99, which to me is not bad. But man, it was like crickets with that piece, and it was a beautiful, it was a dome tent. You had to put the rods in there, and maybe I should have asked her to do like orange or yellow or something like that. I'm a sucker for camo. If there's camo that's out there, it's like that gearhead camo over in Walmart, man. I was like, oh, give me some of that. And then Joann's, which are Joann's out of business, but I've really lucked out finding some really cool 1/6 scale camo patterns that are out there. You got to go looking for them though. I mean, you've done your homework too. I've seen some of the stuff you did.
I'll tell you, that's what I was gonna talk to you about that night. So I would always I always laugh because I would always recommend my mom to sew, but she's almost 80, so she's barely getting out of bed in the mornings when she's not napping. So she sews my stuff for me. But
Right.
it's interesting when you start. I was gonna ask you about this when you start really looking at clothing and patterns and stuff. Do you guys come up with your own patterns that you've kind of made over the years, and then that's what you send to those people, and you're like, hey, this is what I'm looking for. Can you sew us a few things? And then you kind of go from there. It's like, how do you work through that?
Now, one of the ladies who sews, like I said, each lady has their own talent. Like one of the ladies who sews for us, she won't do snaps. She hates snaps. She will not do. She will not do buttons. She'll do Velcro. She'll do elastic. So she does all of our turtlenecks, all of our t-shirts, all of our tank tops, all of our elastic shorts. She does all of our karate outfits. So she has her specific niche. She was doing a karate outfit already for Ken, and then we had her modded for not Barbie. We had her modded for Joe, and then I did send her the karate sets that we had because she had the sleeves and the legs are a little bit longer, and so I sent her mine for my collection, and so she modded it to the shorter one, and then we started offering those. Now the other lady who does put snaps on, we sent her I think it was a land adventure outfit. But then what she did is she kind of had her own style of doing it. She didn't reproduce it exactly. So the sleeves were a little bit longer. And then what we did is we had just, a single pocket or two pockets. And then she lengthened the lower portion of the shirt. And that's when she made 4 pockets. And she has her style, I would say, it's not an exact reproduction of the original. I would say the 4-pocket BDU style that she does is kind of more reminiscent of 21st century toys, a little bit more,
which is really nice.
Yeah, and so it's like an homage, but it's not a direct duplicate. I mean, it's the same thing with like the. I sent her the MP jacket and pants, the Ike jacket, and she did a really good job making her pockets, but they were her own. And so that's the reason why I always call them homage pieces, because they're not a direct duplicate. I mean, I could send this stuff to China and they can reproduce it exactly.
Right.
But these we don't. Speaking of which, man, I have to tell you the story real quick. So I'm on one of these groups, and this one guy has a picture of our pocketed jumpsuit, the white pocketed jumpsuit.
Yeah.
And he posted on it and goes, hey guys, I bought this in a collection. Anybody know what it is? And all these guys were like, oh, that looks like an LJN jumpsuit from Mr. Action, or that looks like an ideal jumpsuit from Captain Action and this and that. And somebody was like, well, that's too good a quality for those. Those aren't that good. And I finally chimed in. I'm like, hey guys, that's one of ours actually. But I just had to kind of laugh at it because it was like, people are mistaking this for 50, 60-year-old pieces.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you've seen. So, like, I went on a binge in Japan over the last probably 6 months. A little bit.
Yeah, I want to hear about that.
A bit ashamed of myself a little bit. All the stuff I bought that I didn't need. But I use my 6-year-old son as an excuse to buy a lot of stuff. So I piggyback. But the amount of old Cotswold stuff over there is wild.
It's nuts, isn't it?
I've bought some stuff and brought it back, and I'm like, wow, I forgot about some of these sets, and I was going to talk to you about this. Like, it's interesting to look at you guys' stuff from 10, 15 years ago and compare it to now, and just look at how much everything has evolved. Mm-hmm. Like the bodies are just, you look at the old bodies, they're similar, but they're a little more streamlined now than what they were. And it's really interesting to look at all that stuff. And it's fascinating because there's stuff that you'll get over in Japan that you guys don't even like, I think, make anymore, like head sculpts and stuff that you'll get in, and you'll see them now. And it's like you guys have become like your own form of collectability. You know what I'm saying? Like I've been looking for all these. It is, well, it's kind of weird, but I mean, not really when you look at the amount of stuff that Cotswold's made over the last 35 years. I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there.
Yeah, what's really wild was, when I got my first Cotswold book, which was about 94. I just graduated 95. I just graduated from college, and what I learned after I got hired by Tina, who used to own the company, was they had one lady who did their designs, and the designs were a little bit rough around the edges and stuff like that. But they did pay more of an homage. They were trying to be a lot more accurate to the vintage 60s and 70s pieces, more of the 60s than the 70s actually. And then when I brought up Augie Romero, Augie lives in Washington, and they hired Augie before he had his own company called Regimental, and Augie was a tailor. So Augie had the talent to scale his tailoring skills down from one scale to 1/6 scale.
Wow!
And so you'll see a part where the fabrics get thinner. You start seeing the tailoring get more accurate. And this was when it was getting closer to the late 90s and into the 2000s, because we were, we kind of had to become competitive, but Augie had the foresight to do these things. And there are some pieces, man. I send some pictures later, that like a Luftwaffe Field Division set that he did that was just like blows your mind away, and all these different ones that we never even made. But what happened was, Tina had a partner named Dick Whittick, and he wanted to work with this company called Gearbox, which at the time Gearbox really wasn't doing.
I remember Gearbox.
Yeah, they were doing more vehicles, but we worked with them, I think, on this like 1800s firefighter and this other stuff. But then what they were going to do is they were going to do a line of figures, that you probably remember, those Gearbox figures that we carried, and I think we did like 6 or 7 of them. But what happened was Augie did all the design work for it, and if they would have followed through and not cut corners like they did, the German figures, the American figures would have been above Dragon quality at the time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was, because Augie was a perfectionist. The work he did was just, I mean, he used to sew where you had the little plastic button. He sewed the stitching to where it looked like there was an eyelet there.
Oh my God.
Yeah, his attention to detail is phenomenal. But yeah, I'll try to send you some pictures, because I never even knew that we had them until I bought the company. And I was going through these boxes, and I was like, I don't remember this set. I don't remember this set. I don't remember this set. And I was like, oh, these are going on Daddy's shelf,
Yeah.
Just,
yeah. Well, post them to the Axis of Awesome Facebook page when you get them.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah, post them up there.
Oh, they're beautiful.
That's just going to ask you, like what, when you're doing concepts, and you guys have a lot of stuff. I mean, honestly, like when I did the intro, I just pulled a few of a few. I mean, 2 minutes of just pictures, and you're like,
yeah,
you guys do a lot of different concepts. Like how? Well, first of all, who is it a group that comes up with a lot of your concepts, or is it you? And how long out do you guys start planning stuff? Like, and also, this is a 3-tier question. Where do you guys get your inspiration for a lot of it from? Because I see a lot of different genres, like 80s movies, military, cheesy, like stuff I love. Like, where all does that come from, and how long does it take you guys to plan all that?
I would say 90 to 95% of the concepts come from me.
Gen X. We're the best.
And then some of the art, I have to give kudos to art. Every so often, went to work for Tina as the director of marketing, I was always challenging everybody there, and I still challenge everybody here. Come up with stuff. And so, like, what's really funny is when I first went to go work for Tina, she had so much inventory. And Elite Brigade was dead by the time I came on in
Oh,
2000.
really?
Yeah, it was like 2006 or whatever it was, or 26. I can't remember. It was dead. It was just dead. There were no design works going on. We were carrying pretty much Hot Toys and all those to stay alive, Sideshow, stuff like that. And Elite Brigade was virtually non-existent. I worked in, of all things, food seasonings for straight out of college, and I just hated life. I would go to the cons. I would go to Brian's shows and do shows. I did fiberglass vehicles and stuff like that, and because I was always a big fan of the hobby. But then, so I came in and Tina had all this inventory, and so I would just, when I would fly up there to Washington to Freeland, I would just walk the aisles of all the stuff.
Whoa.
And so I would just look at stuff. And so in the beginning, what I did is I would just look at stuff and I would start grabbing stuff. And then I would sit at this table and I would just start building sets from what she had existing inventory. And so the agreement we came up with was, if I can sell this dead inventory, she will give me the funding to go do new inventory. And so that's what I did. And this is what's so crazy, man. All right, so we had a Vietnam Navy SEAL, which was basically, I think he was in Tiger Stripes, and he had a boonie, he had an M16, he had a belt, and he had some boots, and I think that was about it. What I did was I took the rubber boots off of them, which were basically Takara Combat Joe boots off of them, and I put tall black vintage boots on him, and I just called him, I think I called him vintage style or retro or whatever. And they just started going gangbusters, man. It just like, and I was like, holy shit. So then I took the Olive Drab fatigue ones in, which was one of our other sets, 101st Airborne. And I gave him, changed out the boots. It's all I did, man. I just changed out the boots. But I call it vintage vibe, is I think what I called them. And so they started doing
vintage vibe,
yeah. And so I was making her money, and she was like, well, this is pretty good. And so then she gave me a short leash and let me go out. And so then I started, one of the first projects I did there was I did the pilot stuff. I always loved the pilot, the 60s pilot. So she let me do the plastic parachute pack, and we did it in the standard blue, and we did it in the standard green with the harnesses. And then I threw her in, let's do one in black. So we did that. And then we were going to do the scramble pilot. And this was like, I was 2 years in working with Tina, and I wanted to do the scramble pilot. So we had the tooling for the scramble pilot helmet, but we never made it. So then what I did is she had a plethora of the fighter pilot helmet.
Okay.
And she had them in white, gold, and green. So I sent them back to the factory to repaint them. So we repainted some of them orange. So for like, what was that one with the orange harness and helmet? Was not Fantastic Free Fall. The one with the gigantic.
Gosh dang it! It had the spider with it, right?
Yeah, the gigantic spider.
Yeah, I can't remember that.
Exactly.
Somebody will know in the comments. They got
somebody in the comments will know.
Yeah, somebody will know.
So we painted those. And then we did the greens. We painted some of them black. We painted some of them orange. Painted some of them yellow. We painted some of them tan.
Skydive to danger.
Skydive to danger. There you go. And so then I took the white helmet, and there was a prototype. There was a photograph in one of the catalogs of a G.I. Joe helmet a pilot helmet that never got made. It was a white helmet with black circles and red stripes on it.
Oh, okay.
And so we had all these white ones with nothing on it. And so I sent the sketch to the people at the factory. I said, can you make the paint mask for that? And so at that time, I guess if you're going to call it you're gonna call it kind of like what's in the Vincent Van Gogh's blue years or green years or whatever. That was my that was my 1960s frame that I was looking at because I was doing that, and then I was doing green berets. We did some green beret sets later on that we did. We did tiger stripe, we did white, we did black. We did the 4-pocket green beret, and then we did the 2-pocket talking commander. And so we were doing that. So she was just slowly giving me, kind of giving me a little bit extra leash, a little bit extra leash. And then, so I was trying to keep it safe because at that point in time, this wasn't my money. This was Tina's money. And she had a full ixnay on the ombre on what I could and couldn't make. And God, man, we'd have meetings, and she was like, "Oh, okay, I want to do a button-up shirt." And I'm like, "Fudge, man, I don't want to do a button-up shirt." And then I was like, "Okay, we'll do button-up shirts." And of course, my go-to was always white, brown, black, green, and tan. Those were my basic colors. White, black, yeah. And so she was like, "Well, I want to do one, but I want to do one in like a canary yellow." And I'm like, "No," but she was a very shrewd woman. She was a damn good businesswoman because she found out that if she scheduled our meetings at Friday around 3:00, which was actually 5:00 my time, I was so damn tired. You could have told me we're gonna be making pixie sticks, and I'd be like, "Fuck it, whatever, let's do it." And so she would get those made in there. So we were doing that. We were doing some of the plastic stuff, and then I just during my tenure there. And you're asking about the creative process because first I was just really borrowing heavily just off of what existed. As far as Hasbro designs, I like that green beret set. I've always loved the green beret set.
It's timeless.
It's timeless. And then jumpsuits. Jumpsuits were always a classic. Tina never wanted me to touch the Land Adventure jacket, shirt, and pants because it was too basic for her. So we never really touched that. I've dabbled in it now. With the lady who sews the buttons and snaps. But back then she was really averse to that. And but then what started happening was I ran into and this is before I bought the company. What's way before I bought the company, actually. I ran into Sean Huckster.
Oh yeah.
At one of the JoeCons. And I really didn't know a whole lot about 3D printing. And I saw his stuff. I talked to him. We had talked before, but we really hadn't talked mano a mano. And he was showing me the stuff, and it was the rhinoceros set, that he had. And then he also had a 3D printed tower, which we still haven't done. I want to do that tower. And then he had the hover pack or the hover jet. And I was like, this is freaking cool. And so I started talking to Sean there, and then we started talking afterward. And if anybody is in sync with my brain waves, it's Sean, because first and foremost, he doesn't even need my brain waves because his brain waves are running on full cycle, full tilt boogie, just phenomenal.
Absolutely.
I mean, the guy's a genius. I can't sing his praises far enough. Absolutely. But I would have it where I would have a sketch, and I always keep a notepad by my bed. And when I wake up at night, if I have an idea, I'll scratch it down. So it's like perfect example. Love Atomic Man, Mike Power. And I liked his copters, but I wanted to do a different copter. I wanted to do a 3-rotor copter. And so I wrote down the sketch. I found a picture of, I think it was like a Sea King or whatever. And those had it where all the rotors fold back when it's on an aircraft carrier. So I sent him my sketches, and then 24 hours later, he's got one that all the rotors fold back and everything. And so any concept that I would give him, he would have it fleshed out, and it was like osmosis that he could just literally read my mind. And then he would just throw these other things at me that just crazy. I mean, you saw the one, that it's that thing. It's like white and powder blue, and you put the little canisters in it, and it spins.
The sample, the centrifuge.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. And, just the stuff like that. And then he had that one thing that was that larger piece, and I forget what he called it, the environmental tester or whatever it is.
Environmental analyzer or whatever, yeah.
He's been screwing around with that thing for years. And that's the hard part, because I'm like, dude, that's perfect. And he's like, no, I want to tinker around with it. It's what's happened with I guess you can call this an exclusive. You remember the lunar hopper that we did years back?
For sure. Yep.
Okay. So, people got really pissed at me because they're like, you didn't make enough. I'm like, well, yeah, we got a guy printing these damn things. And I never want to wear out the welcome with Sean. Sean is a very generous person. He doesn't charge me what he should be charging on these things, but he does it for the love of the hobby. So anyway, I got, that set had the red helmet from Captain Cosmos. And I got the last of his remnants of those helmets. He doesn't have those helmets anymore. In fact, he doesn't have the visors anymore. So I have 5 red helmets, 5 white helmets, and 5 black helmets. So when I said, Sean, can you make me 5 of the regular red lunar hoppers, and then can you do a color variation of one that has black themes, and can you do another one with white themes? He's like, yeah. So I'm chugging along. I got my lady who made her spacesuits, which phenomenal work on that. And we've got the spacesuits already. It has this foil material with white stripes, one with blue red stripes, one with black stripes. I've got the helmets. I got everything else. But Sean, there was something happened with like the dowel rods or something. There was something, and it just totally. I mean, it's like you literally stuck a thing in the gear shifter. It just stopped him cold, and so it really put a creative block on him. But I think he finally found something that meets his expectations. I mean, I was like, shit, bro, I'll go to Walmart and buy some wooden dowel rods, paint those things white, And he's like, no, and that's what I love about the guys, and he'll put up and he's kind of like what is it? Is it Leonardo da Vinci? If you ever read about Leonardo da Vinci, he'd be painting something, and if he just wasn't feeling like it or wasn't feeling inspired, he would just put it to the side. And then he'd come back later. The Mona Lisa, I think he worked on the Mona Lisa for years. He just carried it around with him. That's how Sean is. He'll be working on it, and and then he'll stop. It's like the one that we did, the one that has the dolphin with the underwater projectors.
Absolutely.
And dude, that is probably his most aggressive set to date. And
does it have the underwater his little UAV or whatever underwater?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that thing's super dope. I mean, that's
it's just, I mean, what is so crazy? He sent me the sample. That's one of the perks of my job. I get to keep some of these things for myself.
Well, that's the best part about being the owner of the company. I mean, that's a perk, man. I mean, that's awesome.
It's definitely fun. It's definitely fun. But he sent me the ROV, and I was like, dude, I can tell there's a lot in here. What the hell, man? Where's the switch? And he goes, push the black fin. So I push the black fin, and the light turns on. I'm like, oh my god,
I turned
it. In fact, I feel like an idiot because I left it on one time and I came back the next day and it was already dead. So now my next email is, Sean, how do I take this thing apart to put the batteries in it?
Batteries back in.
But it's like, that one we were gangbusters on that one, and I forgot there was something that got him hung up on something on that one. But he's all, but it also, and in defense of Sean, his wife has had some health problems and stuff like that.
Yep.
And so I'll just check in with him every so often. So he's like, I'm still out here. I'm still chugging along. But so, yeah, working with him, that pushed me in a new direction with 3D printing. And then I went into 2 different directions. Actually, well, I went in multiple directions, as you pointed out. All right. So the adversaries were in response to all the mini comics for G.I. Joe where he had bad guys a la Spy Island, but there was never a set for him. All right.
Yep.
And so, and then you take that and then you mix in all of the James Bond movies where the guy always had a secret mountain outpost or he had an island, and this and that. And he always had those guys running around with jumpsuits and hard hats, and they're shooting Madsen submachine guns or M76s or Swedish Ks. Which, if you ever want to get to be my best buddy in the whole world, you send me some
You love a
Swedish
Swedish
Ks.
K. I know you love a Swedish K.
I love the Swedish K. I love the Swedish K, and one of these days we're going to make it. And so I went down that path where I was doing. So that's why they had the helmets and they just a real basic design. And then I started doing the commanders, and then I took the adversaries into Johnny Quest territory with Dr. Komodo.
Yeah, Dr. Komodo's a cool figure. I love all
That
the
was-
villains. There's a lot of really good villains in that in your line of adversaries.
Yeah, I love it. And then, oddly enough, when I was talking about art, what was his name? He was a black guy adversary. He was based on Shaft. That's art.
I remember. Did you have a Luca Porbenika's like black trench or leather coat on him, or was that a different?
No, the very first one that we did was the black leather jacket and pants from the Gearbox U-boat Commander.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So that was the Generation 1, and it was, God bless, Shaft. It was based on Shaft. I forget what his name was. Shaft. It was a play on the word Shaft. And so that was his. In fact, the first one we did was, and this is when I was up there with him, he came up with the concept. The first one we did, we were going to give him a black beret, and it was going to be more like a Black Panther. And we had him with the black fist, in the air, and he had like an M1 carbine, because I think they were using those or something like that.
Back when we could all own those.
And I was like, we showed it to Tina, and Tina goes, I'm not sure about that one. And so we took him back and we made him. Actually, no, he wasn't a bad guy. He was a good guy. He was an assassin. But then what we did, I think his name was Rod or something like that. It was something like Shaft Rod or whatever. And so he was all in black. And then we did one, the same guy, but he was in red and black, and he had a red afro, an orangish red afro. And the other one was Rod the Super Agent. That's what he was called. And the other one was called Red the Assassin. And he was his twin brother. He was his twin brother, and he became one of the adversaries. So he was an assassin for the adversaries. So that was when we sold out of the not the deep sea divers, the U-boat guys. Then we had Felipe make the outfits, and then eventually it turned into where Sydney was making the outfits. So that was one of Art's babies. But we just kind of spitball, and then we did that, and then I went through a phase where I still am to this day. I was collecting. I was going back and collecting custom maker stuff like Soldiers Through Time, Tripwire toys, and stuff like that. So I kind of went back into my military phase again, and that's when we started doing the Vietnam gear, the Vietnam M16 ammo pouches, H harnesses, which we had before, but the ones we had before were the H portion of it was cloth, but then the straps were made of like this ribbony material, and I hated that. And so we tweaked it and changed it up a little bit. So I was doing a little bit of military, and then I was really kicking into gear and on Adventure Team, because I loved Adventure Team. I have I would say probably 95% of my Adventure Team complete right now.
Wow.
And so that's what I wanted to do, because I already had jumpsuits and stuff like that. And then and it's like kind of like when I talked about before about Leonardo da Vinci. I would take a set, and I would be making a set, and then I would just kind of leave it there and kind of watch it, just look at it. And I'm talking about a couple of weeks where I would just kind of sit there, and then I would like, if you feel it, you feel it. And then I'd finally add a piece. I'm like, oh, that's what I needed to add. I needed to add that little pouch in the back to hold the compass or whatever it was. And so that's what I would do. And because Tina, the way Tina was doing it at the very beginning was, they were doing more reproduction stuff from the 60s and 70s, because that was their bread and their butter, because they were doing a lot of repro stuff. I mean, they were selling Action Man that they had come across. They were selling, Falcone stuff that they had come across, Guyperman. And then they started reproing it, as you know,
Yeah.
Quite a bit of the repros that they did were actually from Combat, Combat Joe.
Yeah.
And,
A lot of them, a lot of molds look similar in a lot of ways. Like the hands, is the hands like a Combat Joe, the gripping
yeah,
hands? Yeah.
exactly. The boots are Combat Joe. The Thompson submachine gun pouches are Combat Joe. The MP40 pouches are Combat Joe. But this is what's cool, and I didn't even know this until later on. The AK-47, the Browning automatic rifle, the Mosin Nagant. There was like 4 or 5 different weapons that I never knew the origins of. But the origins of these weapons, these are weapons that were shown in Action Man catalogs as coming out as part of a weapon set, and it never came out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And Alan Dawson, and I have to give Alan Dawson credit. Alan Dawson's old school, lives in England. Actually, he lives in Wales, but we won't go there. He was like, "Yeah, that's the da-da-da." I don't know, and Tina really doesn't even remember it. So I don't know if, because Cotswold Collectibles started out as a vintage furniture company. They were buying. That's why it was called Cotswold Collectibles, because they were buying a lot of the furniture from the Cotswolds region in England. And
Whoa,
what
that's
happened?
crazy.
Yeah, so they were in San Francisco. They were doing vintage. They were doing vintage antique furniture. Right? Antique furniture, not vintage antique. It's a redundancy. The antique furniture. And then they came across a warehouse or something that had nothing but unsold, still in the box Action Man stuff from the early 1980s.
No shit.
Yeah, unsold inventory, unsold stock. So they came back to the States. This is back when the world was ruled by magazines, if you remember that day. And they put an ad. It was either like in Toy Collector or Action Figures and News and Toy Review, or one of them. They put a little ad in there that showed what they had. And they left, went on the next travel, and then they came back, and their voicemail was full of people
Really?
wanting to buy this Action Man. Yeah. And so they decided, hey, let's kind of look out for this when we're looking out for antiques. And so they were finding Action Man. They found a huge stash of unsold Guyperman from Spain, Group Action Joe from France. I mean, they traveled Europe, and they even went into South America. And like I said, that's how they found some of the Falcone stuff. And
Whoa.
yeah. And so they slowly shifted. They moved the company to Washington, to Whidbey Island, and it was the town of Clinton. And they shifted over. And so in 1989, they shifted over just to do G.I. Joe in 12-inch vintage. And then that's when they started adding on the boots, and they started adding on the hands. And then they got permission from Hasbro to manufacture the body. They had to get
Wow.
permission from Hasbro. Even though, I know everybody says, well, the body's the body, it's the body, but they just didn't want to start cutting steel, and then Hasbro say, hey, no, that's too close to our body. Yet they had the generosity to work with them. And then, that's what, they had a lot more plastics items first, and then they started doing the clothing. So this one lady was doing the clothing, then it led on to Augie, and Augie was doing the more accurate stuff versus the reproduction stuff. He was doing the jump smocks and everything else. And then Augie left to go found, he's got his own company, Battle Gear Toys. He's still out there. And the work he does is just phenomenal. He's doing the work that Cotswold should have been doing, but then they went in a partnership with Gearbox. And so he sells his stuff, and it's just beautiful. He does Civil War. He does Spanish-American War. I mean, if you name the battle or the war, he's probably done something to go with it.
Wow.
And and then I came along, and then, like I said, I was just basically just trying to regurgitate existing inventory and create new stuff from it. And then it led into, getting stuff made overseas to what I want, to the standards. And what's funny is you're talking about the bodies. The bodies went through 2 different iterations before I came on board. The first body, we call it the pale body. It was this real kind of pale skin.
Right.
And then the body after that was called the tan body. And the reason for that is they were not monitoring. They weren't working as close as they should have with the factory. And the pigment changed, and it went to a darker color. So then they had to change all the head sculpts and all like that. And when I came on board, I was like, we need to get back to and I call it the pink body, which is the more accurate color body. And we've had a couple of variations, but for since I've been on board, it's been that closer to what the G.I. Joe body is, that pinkish color
Mm-hmm.
per se. But and then I think I saw some people commenting about head sculpts and stuff like that. We have not created a new head sculpt since I've been on board. We've been using existing head sculpts. The only heads that we have manufactured over and over again are the Jake heads, which are the classic. The Mike head, I think we might call him Roy or Ray now, which was the African American 1970s. And then, of course, like I said, we just did Ed, which is the African American, which is basically Jake, but it's African American. And then the Kiji head, which is the Japanese soldier. We've been running off of inventory, and a lot of people don't realize this. We've been running off of inventory that were produced over 20 years ago.
Like still stuff that was made 20 years ago, you still have an inventory of?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? Wow.
Yeah.
Shit.
Because back in that day, it was a lot more stringent. I mean, you know, you got to imagine this is back in like the late 80s, early 90s. And, you know, getting in contact with a factory, you just didn't go, you know, you didn't go on Alibaba or something like that. You know, you had to know people and go to China and visit people and, you know, go to Hong Kong and all that jack. So the MOQ for ordering like a head sculpt was like 10,000 units.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
That makes sense though, if you're going to mass produce something, right?
It definitely makes sense. And then, you know, so what they would do, you know, you had your brunette, your blonde, your black hair, and your red hair. And so you did 10,000, and so then you would do 2,500 of each color, or whatever it was, and so when people are pitching at me and they're like, "These are the ugliest heads I've ever seen," I'm like, "Yeah, but they're paid for."
Yeah, I mean, you can always mod them.
Yeah, and yeah, because Robert DeCastro mods the hell out of his, and you know, you saw the zombies he did, you know, and
he's
so
a genius.
he's and see, let me tell you, Robert DeCastro, I remember him at that 1998 Joe show
when he was sewing his own rigs.
when he was doing his own rigs, and he was working with the guy that was going to do this guy. He was a snake oil salesman, and he fleeced Robert. Because I think he got a bunch of Robert's prototypes that he was making. I think Robert was supposed to have been the designer for this guy's thing.
Mm-hmm.
And because that guy was there, I forget what his name was. He was a dick. But Cahoon Plastics, I don't know if you remember Cahoon Plastics. They built a vacuum formed Cadillac gauged armored car.
Oh,
and
wow.
Pretty rudimentary, but it still worked. And so I remember they delivered that to the guy, and then all the display items that were there were Robert's stuff. And I didn't really know Robert at the time. In fact, it wasn't until recently that I got to know Robert. But you were looking at this stuff, and I mean, this is like the late 90s, and Robert's stuff was just, you thought it was made at a factory. The workmanship was so good. And, but yeah, in fact, he did the show last year, the DFW show.
He did.
And he did that one set.
Oh.
Yeah, I bought one. And you know, Robert's work ain't cheap, but Robert's work is well worth the money. You know.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you watch the stuff that he sews, and even the stuff you guys have sewn, and then I watch my mom sew. Like, I think a lot of people. This is what I always like to tell everybody when people bitch about prices and stuff. I'm like, well, let's be honest here. If you could sit down and watch someone make something and watch them work through it on a sewing machine or with a 3D printer, and you see the amount of time and effort that goes into that, and then you just put a dollar price to it, just put minimum wage on it.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about a decent amount of money. So, yeah. And you're also buying, and I told this, you're buying somebody's art in a sense, right? So you're buying something that somebody's created, and it's going to be there in your collection, hopefully for a long time. So you're not only buying a toy, but you're also buying something somebody's took the time to create and design. That's with you guys, with Sean, with Robert, with anybody you buy stuff off of. And I get it why people are like, oh, it's so expensive. But at the same time, it's beautiful and amazing.
Well, and see, that's the funny thing. And when you talk about that, I mean, I jokingly say I own a DeCastro now. like it is a piece of art.
Yep.
But I can, like I said, in the late '90s, these custom makers, they've been around since the '70s. I mean, they were there. Excuse me, in the '80s. They came around the '80s. But I was still running around, eating boogers and shit back then, and they were doing stuff. Mark Cole is like the grandfather of them all. He lives in Indiana. I mean, he just stopped doing custom work, but I mean, the custom work he was doing as of lately were just as good, if not better, than his original works.
Yep.
And I mean, like if you wanted to get a good, I mean, like Tripwire Toys, if you wanted to get a good Tripwire Toys outfit or whatever, you're going to pay upwards of 150. If you're going to get an Augie, you're going to be paying upwards of 300 or so. So, your price point was, about $150, $300, whatever like that. So then here comes Classic Collection. Here comes Dragon Models. Here comes 21st Century Toys. Then here comes Damn Toys. Here comes Soldier Story and all these other guys. And you had 21st Century Toys who comes in and they're selling these things for $30 a pop. And so they totally devalued the market for all of these other guys that were doing stuff. But what was so funny is I used to be on the Sandbox when it was alttoys.gi Joe. And I remember these guys, they're bitching about, something wasn't right on this $30 figure. I'm like, you guys don't know how good you have it.
Oh,
you
man.
have an opportunity to go buy these pieces and stuff for $30 a pop, or buy the outfits for $15 a pop. Whereas beforehand, if you're going to be getting something like this, you're going to be paying upwards of $150 to $300.
Yeah.
And like I said, Trip Art, Paul Ivy, he's passed away. He used to hand cast every one of his pouches, and he signed every one of them. He had a signature on it. His wife sewed every outfit. Paul drew the artwork that went on each box, and then put them in little boxes with not wrapping paper, but whatever you call that paper. What's
Tissue
that?
paper.
Tissue paper.
Yep.
And so every set, he had color variations of every one, but every set that has a basic theme, he had the artwork that he had drawn on every one of them with his signature. Yeah. And so that's the reason I have a mad respect for all of those people, because they were keeping the hobby alive back then, and the workmanship. Each individual person had their own unique talents and how they did stuff. And that's always been, and it's a thing I've been working on. First I was talking about doing a book. I don't know if I'll do a book, but I've been collecting all these things. I've been collecting. I come across shit, man. When I did the DFW show, Mark Bashinsky came to the show, and he had one of Tripwire Toys' pieces still in the box, and I'm like, I'm buying that, and because you don't see him pop up. I did when we did the Chattanooga show. When the Chattanooga show, Brian show that was in Denver, but it wasn't in Denver. It was off. There was a guy that had a Mark Cole North Vietnamese Army set with a Mark Cole head sculpt that Mark cast and painted himself. And I was like, I don't care how much it's in. Yeah. And I found out he had some other shit there, but some other guy knew what it was too and bought it. So to me, I've always felt the stuff that these guys do, and I still to this day feel the same way. I have the same mad respect for Murray. I have the same mad respect for Rob. I have this, and now the new evolution of people with Jim Egner and with Sean and Keith Holmes and all these other guys doing 3D printing. To me, that is I almost categorize it. Well, not so much the 3D printing, but that's an entirely different thing. But this older stuff, I almost consider it like American folk art. And I know that sounds goofy.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense, actually.
But, it's just, there was a time that was needed. And so I've just been collecting stuff. And if there's anybody out there who has any stuff, please give me a call, because I'm collecting it, I'm cataloging it, I'm photographing everything. Eventually, I will either get a website or I'll just create something on my Facebook page. But I've always been a firm believer in preserving the legacy of some of this stuff. And I still to this day, I was talking to somebody a couple days ago. When I was doing shows when I was younger, when I was doing Brian Savage's shows, I was so busy being a vendor and being everything like that, I didn't partake in any of the stuff Brian did. And Brian had Don Levine, he had Sam Spears, he had Petrucci, he had all those people. And you're young, you're dumb, and you're thinking, oh, I'll get to check these guys out. Well, I never got to meet any of these guys. I got to meet Don Levine. He did a Bullet Man. Some people were throwing a Bullet Man down a wire at the hotel, and Don Levine was there, which was super cool. But I thank God that there were people like Daryl DePriest, and there were people like I forget who else. Somebody else did another book. John Mishlick. John Mishlick did a really good book to preserve the legacy of those people and keep that going. And Daryl has done wonders with preserving the legacy of the guys who worked on the adventure team.
Absolutely.
Not a lot of people know it, and that's the reason why I brought him to the show last year and had him do the part 1 and part 2. And here's the crazy thing. I know one of those guys is still alive because Jim Egner and I were working on a land vehicle and then like a swamp vehicle.
Yep.
And we previewed them last year, and then we found out the guy is still alive.
Okay.
And we are now working with that guy.
Oh, really?
And he's helping us with the designs and what he wanted to do and what he didn't get to do and yada, yada, yada.
Really?
Yeah. And so we're still going to do a series for it. We're going to do original artwork on it. I've asked him if he can sign every one of them, because to me, that's a legacy. And he was just amazed that we were able to recreate it with 3D printing. I mean, you can do 3D printing so much easier, And so I wanted to get it done last year. It just didn't happen. We kind of cooled our jets a little bit. Jim came by this past Saturday, and he brought the version of the Swamp one, which has a corkscrew propulsion unit, which
like
actually
like those Russian all terrain vehicles.
Yeah, and they actually work, which is what's crazy. So he brought me that. He redesigned the engine. He redesigned the cover for the engine. Has an access panel.
I love Jim.
Yeah, Jim's another one of those guys that is just like, I'll send him this. Excuse me. I sent him the sketches from this Hasbro guy, and he was already drawing it up in CAD and did a really good job. But
yeah, we're lucky to have him and Sean.
We're blessed. We are very blessed.
People don't understand, but yeah.
No, and they don't. And it kind of goes back to what you were talking about earlier, where people, and this is the only thing that chaps my ass, is people will be like, well, how come you can't keep this in stock? Or how come, it's taking you so long to do this? And because I'm like, just one, be happy that we're even making it,
Yeah.
And be happy that we have the talent that can do it, and be happy that they're not charging us what, in my opinion, should be more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
so, yeah, that's the only thing where I get a little bit pissy about is, and I've actually had to delete some posts sometimes. One time I was not in a very good mood. I hadn't had my coffee, and some guy had posted a comment on our Facebook page. And I think I started off with Jackwagon was how I started it. And then I had to delete it. I
know. Back to the guy who was the adventure team designer guy.
Yeah.
I've always wondered about that. I remember when they did that presentation and Daryl did I think it was him and was it Todd Pleasant?
Todd Pleasant, yeah.
Todd, they did that. It was amazing. I remember seeing that when they did the G.I. Joe con, but I'd love to get Daryl on the show one of these days and talk to him about the adventure team. But those guys that are still alive, wouldn't it be interesting to reach out to those guys and have them, if they're still, they're probably old, but still like have them come up with a design, like just kind of maybe something that they never got to do and they always had an idea for. That would be kind of dope.
Well, that's what we're hoping to do. We originally, when we did the show last year, it was a celebration of the G.I. Joe 60th anniversary. So, we wanted to really cover everything. We wanted to cover Super Joe. We wanted to cover Adventure Team. We wanted to cover 80s Joe. We wanted to cover Classic Collection, Hall of Fame, all that jazz. And so when I was talking to Daryl, I was like, I'll fly you and this guy down. And he was like, he contacted me back and he goes, well, I'm in. But he says, that other guy's just not really comfortable in flying. And he goes, Greg, you got to understand these guys are in their 80s. And I fully understand that because Ron Rudat, who we've had at the show 3 times, he's in his early 80s. And last year he was having a hard time. And Ron, this is what's cool about Ron. Ron worked on Adventure Team. He was not very deep into it. In fact, we jokingly say Ron's forgotten more than what any of us can ever remember. And because we'll ask him, "Did you work on this?" He's like, "I don't know." Steve can tell you the story. I wasn't there, but Steve found the Sea Wolf mini comic had Ron's signature on it. On the cover, it says Rudat. And Steve took it to Ron and presented it to him because at that time we didn't have any clear. We knew that Ron had done some of the packaging instructions on the back of cards, those really small, cheaper cards, but he, really, we didn't know what his involvement was with the other stuff. And so anyway, Steve brings it to him like it's, it's like manna from heaven or, Ark of the Covenant or whatever. And he pushes it towards him on it and he picks it up and Ron picks it up and looks at it. And he looks at Stovall and he goes, "Not my best work." And he gives it back to Stovall.
Oh, it's like, oh shit, dude. You think you're being clever, but then you're like, oh damn.
Yeah. He goes, "Not my best work." Which the guy, if you read about him for Joe, he created the Cobra logo. He created, did the designs of almost all the figures. At least, I don't know how long he did it. I've met the guy. I've had him to our show 4 times this year. Met him at other shows. His wife and Jenny are the most down to earth people, and I'm the type of guy. I've always been the type of guy that I will sit down and I'll listen to an older guy tell me everything that he wants to tell me.
Yep.
I used to be a World War II reenactor. I got to go to the opening of the it was at the time it was the National D-Day Museum, and now it's the World War II Museum in New Orleans. I got to sit down with me and a bunch of other reenactors and listen to was it Dick Winter's talk.
Oh wow.
Yeah, he was there. And so we just all sat around. It's like all a bunch of, we're all grown ass men and we're like little kids. We're holding around grandpa or whatever. And he's just telling the stories, about what was going on. And I'm the same way with Ron. I'm just in awe of his talent and his work. And I wish to God he could remember more of the Adventure Team. But, it is what it is. But yeah, that one guy, and I feel absolutely horrible. I can't remember his name. I really am kind of interested to find out. And I don't know. I do know that when Todd and Daryl did the thing last year on the part 1 and part 2 about Adventure Team or whatever, they actually added new content that they didn't do in 2018.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So if you watch those videos, it will be a little bit different than the content that they did in 2018. So they've added a couple of things and tweaked it. So. And I didn't even know about it until I think it was like Saturday or something. That Eric goes, "Yeah, I've been in contact with so and so, and he's sending me some new pictures." I'm like, "What?"
So they're gonna be new pictures of this one then?
The one we recorded last year. If you go to it,
yeah, it's on YouTube, isn't it?
Yeah, it's on the DFW GI Joe and Action Figure Show YouTube channel. So
I love Adventure Team. Adventure Team's my jam. It's always been my jam, and
it's like phenomenal. My brothers are 11 and 13 years older than me, so they grew up with the military ones. I like the military ones.
Yeah.
But to me, they kind of had a certain part, and then they kind of just did a revisit on them, with the exception of A, the Green Beret, and B, the Marine Jungle Fighter, which were my 2 favorite guys. But Adventure Team, it was just like, man, they just kicked into full gear and just started blowing and going,
Yeah, the thing about the Adventure Team, and I've talked about it a lot probably, but there is a sense of wonder and imagination associated with that time period and that particular line that you don't find in any other G.I. Joe line. Any of them. I mean, because it was the perfect combination of, you had to build your own adventure. You had these nameless, faceless adventures, just regular sets, but you went out and you did your own thing.
Yeah.
And we're still doing that today.
Land Adventure was your avatar. It was
right.
You.
Yeah, with all your sets, like all the stuff you guys come up with, you, Sean, Jim, all your different clothing outfits. Like when I see something that you guys have made, I'm like, shit, I got to buy that now. So I'm going to pre-order it, right? And I'm going to get it in. And then I'm going to go out and I'm going to create a photo story. I spend like, okay, I got to get this photo story together. And then I got to figure out what the hell else I got to buy, what I have custom made. But you're fostering an imagination in like a 50-year-old man. Just imagine being a kid back in the 1970s and you're in the aisle at Kmart and you just see these guys in this wild frog skin camo, with these cool helicopters and these cool ATVs and shit. And just, you're like, I got to go out and play with these things. And I even see it now in my son, who's 6, and he loves my adventure team stuff. And he takes it to the beach with him or takes it to the woods. No disrespect to any of the other G.I. Joe lines. Like you said, I'm a Super Joe fan. I think Super Joe was way ahead of its time.
Super much so. Yeah.
But when you look at the other lines, they photograph great. They're beautifully designed. But to me, there's just no fostering of the imagination that you get with an adventure team figure.
There's not. I mean, it just, and we've talked about this a lot, like at like Jolanta or Toylanta or whatever it is now. And because we used to have the State of the Hobby. Have you ever made it to any of those shows, Jolanta, Toylanta? I don't think you have.
I've never made it to any of those. No, I just went to the regular G.I. Joe conventions. I've went to like 3 of those back in the day. But I need to go. I'm going to go to Kentucky, and it's going to probably be the first one I go to. Probably not this year, but next year.
Oh man, well I'll be there too. I go there every year.
You go there every year, yeah.
I love Steve Show. Steve was such a great guy. But where was I going with this story?
Adventure team.
Oh, shit, I'm not trained to fucking fuck, I just forgot what it was. I just man, I just went fucking blank, man.
So what happens when you get to be our age.
But I just need to preface this. I love having conversations about this stuff. If you can't tell, I'm just fucking geeking out as it is. This has
been awesome.
But yeah, I mean, I get excited just, you're talking about, I mean, I remember being at Gibson's and I remember getting my Atomic Man. I remember getting my Bullet Man. I remember getting my Adventure Pursuit Craft, which was my favorite plane ever, favorite vehicle ever. Yeah. In fact, I have every single version of the Adventure Pursuit Craft that is out there. And this is what's funny. When I first started collecting it, I had the Adventure Pursuit Craft. I didn't get the Adventure Pursuit Craft for Super Joe because even at my young age, I was like, it's the same damn plane. They just gave him a seatbelt. I'm not buying that. And so then I got older and I bought it because I had to have it. And then I got the Action Man version of it. And then I was like, I'm done. And so I remember I was at Kansas City and I was talking to some guys and I was being a dick. I was like, yeah, I've got all 3 of the Pursuit Craft vehicles. And this one guy goes, there's another one. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, there's the Group Action Joe one, which is tan. And so then I was scouring for it and I found one in France, but the guy wouldn't sell it. This tells you how some people in France are total dicks. He wouldn't sell it to me because I'm an American. So I have a friend of mine. I'm not lying, bro. So I have a friend of mine who lives in Quebec. And I was like, bro, can you just buy it for me and we'll figure it out? And he goes, yeah, not a problem. So he, they love people in Quebec, they speak French. And so he got it for me. And so I got it. And so then I had 4 of them. And so then I'm sitting around and I'm talking again. This is like 2 years later. And I'm like, yeah, I've got all 4 of them now, And this guy walks up to me and he goes, there's 5. I'm like, fuck you, there's 5?
5?
Yes, Mexico.
Is it Little Eddie? Did Little Eddie?
Lily Letty.
What color is
it? Silver.
What?
Yeah. So the Adventure Team one is gray. The other one's orange. Green is for, Great Britain and that. So anyway, he shows me pictures because I'm like, bullshit, man. There's no way. He's like, yeah. So anyway, he shows it to me. He's got the box. And I've never seen one. And so I was like, brother, if you ever decide to sell it, here is my number. So then 2 years later, he called me. He goes, man, I'm going to have to sell it. I'm like, well, what's your number? And he told me the number. And I didn't even question him.
Okay, do it. Yeah.
Like, do it. So I got the box and anything from Lily Letty. I mean, the quality is not good. So the box quality is not very good. And I need to find somebody who can repair those boxes for me. Because I have it in a trash bag to keep the light out, but it's just tatters on the corner. So I got that one. And so I don't even fucking talk about it anymore because I'm afraid if I say I've got all 5 of them, there's going to be some jackwagon or there's one from Italy or something like that. So, but yeah, that was always my favorite vehicle. I remember getting it for Christmas and having it down there and just loving it. But yeah, and it's crazy because I'm just a kid like everybody else. It's like when I found out that, okay, so Portugal, I forget what's the guy, it was Wolfpack. When I found out Wolfpack was making their stuff, I was buying their stuff just like everybody else was, because I was like, I like it. And then when Felipe, somebody told me about Felipe stuff, and I was buying that stuff too,
Yeah.
And so I'm just the same way. It's like, and then I see you posting stuff, and I'm like, fuck, those are cool, and because you're finding some really cool patterns that I got mad respect for, and I was just like,
Well,
and that's what I just love about the hobby about that.
That's what I was going to talk to you about too, about camouflage patterns. Obviously, I don't know if you've played around Spoonflower. Spoonflower is expensive.
Yes, like $18 for a yard or something.
And I don't know, like, have you reached out to them to see if there's a way for you to get like a bulk discount on any of that stuff?
I haven't thought about it.
I bet if you like, I don't know. That's my question. Like, obviously Spoonflower is, it's individual creators, so you're basically buying their design. I'm not sure what they're making, but you're essentially paying Spoonflower to print their design, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, they're kind of like Shapeways or whatever.
That might be worth checking out because Greg, this is what I do. Like, honestly, so I lay in bed at night on my phone before I go to bed while my wife's reading a book, and I'm on Spoonflower and I'm just looking at camouflage, right?
Yeah.
And I kind of steer. I just type in like camouflage, and I find all these girls on there that are artists, and they're all over the world, like Japan, Italy, Sweden, that have these wild camouflage patterns. And I'm like, wow, that would look really cool as just a basic explorer outfit. So Spoonflower used to be able to just message them on Spoonflower, but you can't anymore. So now you got to go to their website or Instagram, and they always answer. But I'm always like, hey, this is what I do. I make custom G.I. Joe clothes for my guys. I make photo stories. And I say, can you shrink this down to 1/6 scale? And there's never been one that said no.
Really?
Nope, never said no. And you'll find camo some of the wildest patterns on there. Like the one I just found, the one I put on my Muscle Body Commander. I freaking love that pattern. I'm going to probably buy a yard of it because it's just such a wild pattern. But yeah, I've always wondered, like, I think you and I might have messaged about Spoonflower at one time when we talked about the price, but yeah, I don't know if like it might be worth checking into, like seeing if you can get a bulk pricing on something.
And that reminds me, was it you and I that were talking that you came across that one? It looked like a lizard. It was like a greenish and lightish green lizard pattern, and we ended up getting. I think you sent some of the yardage, or you sent some to me. Or I forget what it was, but we ended up having the lady over at Dolly Knickers making them.
That might have been. I don't think it was me with the lizard color. I don't know. I don't think so.
Hold on. Let me just go grab it because I know exactly where it's at. Hold on.
Yeah, grab it and show it on here. We want to see it.
Yeah. No. Hold on.
I'll grab that one pattern and show everybody that. What's up, guys out there? Thanks for sticking around. This has been an amazing live stream. I'm glad everybody in the comments is still here. I know some of you guys have took off, but man, this has been super fun. Greg and I are gonna have to do this again. This might have to be an annual get together.
This one.
Oh no, it wasn't me, but that's a great pattern.
You?
No,
God, who was it? Pattern. They came across this pattern. And it was at Walmart.
Oh, really? Walmart has some wild camouflage patterns.
Yeah. Hold on. My wife's texting me while I'm trying to have a podcast. Go away. Go away. There we go. Sorry. She was like, are you done yet?
So
Like,
we'll be
no,
finished soon.
no, screw her, man. I'll talk forever. But yeah, because I couldn't remember if it was you or somebody else. I'm sure maybe they're watching
That's
it.
a cool camouflage pattern. See, that's so
Yeah, I
unique.
mean it's super freaking cool. And I made a couple of um, commanders uniforms for it. Of course, I don't have the Swedish K, but oh shit, there we go. I
Yeah,
do have my M76 with silencer.
that's a great looking
21st
one.
century toys.
Well, this is
So
the one. This is a unique pattern I liked.
that is cool.
So this is from, I think, a girl in Japan, I think.
Really.
But yeah, so I got that, and I had, we made a set of 21st century clone pants.
Hmm.
But I thought this screamed like Adventure Team. That wild pattern. But this is off Spoonflower. This is just some girl. She shrank
That's
it
cool.
down for me. But I love this pattern here. I've shown this. This here is just unbelievable.
Yeah, I like that one.
I mean,
Yeah.
this is something I posted a link to the camouflage on my live stream the other night, but it might be worth checking out. And then also, the zebra, zebra camo.
Yeah.
What the hell? Like,
Oh yeah.
there's
And
some
see, that's the deal. I mean, a case in point, talking about Walmart, the leopard skin scarves that we get.
right.
Those are from Walmart. They sell them they sell them by fat quarter. They don't sell
Right.
them by the yard.
Yep.
And so I've been doing them. And then have you had Chuck Scirocco on your show yet?
No, Chuck's gonna come on back in August.
Okay. So Chuck, so I've been selling them at that ascot, because they're perfect for like the white tiger hunt or whatever it is. Chuck made a set that he's kind of like an African warlord kind of guy.
Yeah,
But
I remember that.
he used that same pattern, and he's got the machete and the sheath, and then he's got the kufi hat, and then the shirt and the pants, and then the belt. His came with an AK. I wasn't crazy about the AK. It was a cool AK, don't get me wrong. But we had a Zulu warrior, and we had some leftover Zulu spears, and so I gave mine a Zulu spear, and I gave him the rest of my Zulu spears, the Asage or something like that. I forget what they're called. And I gave him the rest of them, and I said, "Go forth." I don't mean to sound like some preach or something. Go forth and create great things. I told him, I said, "Just take these and make something amazing with them," because he's to me, he's the next evolution. He has he really asked Mark Cole a lot of questions. His the hair when he takes and he uses our heads, full credit to him for that, because he always tells us he uses them and tells everybody. But then he put that rooted hair in there.
I know, it's wild to see him do that, and his suit looks so cool.
Just nuts. And so he gave me I don't know if I've shared this. I'll send you the picture. He gave me a super afro one on an Ed head. And then when Felipe was getting out of it, Felipe just sold me kind of everything he had left. And he had this funky 70s leisures disco suit that had the gold chain and everything. And so I was like, oh, brother, this is coming together. So I've got it. I've showed it on some podcasts. I'd grab it, but I don't want to I don't want to waste any more time. I'm enjoying talking. But I put him on there with the gold chain with the gigantic afro, and I got the fifth. I want to talk to Jim. I want to get a fro pick, and I just want to put a fro pick in there.
You should.
But he's done that one, and then the other one he did for me was a Norse Viking. But he did the beard.
Did he hair plug it?
Yeah, he plugged it. But I asked him, I was like, "Can you braid it?" And he goes, "Yeah, I can braid it." So he's going to braid the beard like a Norse Viking kind of thing.
Wow, he's super talented.
Yeah, and I'm lucky because one of the projects that I was working on was I was going to do a Viking. And bad story here, there's a factory in India that we worked with, and they did all of our elite armor. And I was working with them. We did some gladiators, we did some Romellos years ago when I worked for Tina, and we still have that armor. but I always wanted to do more gladiators, but I also wanted to do Norman, like Norman invaders, Viking raiders, which the Norman helmets and the Viking helmets had a lot of similarities. And so I have what they call, I think they call it a barbute, Barbute. So anyway, I've got the helmet, and of course, contrary to popular belief, there weren't horns like that. So I have the helmet, and then it has the thing that goes down here that protects the nose. So eventually what I'm going to do is I'm going to build myself like a Norse raider or a Viking raider or whatever like that. And I'm going to use his head sculpt because that kid has some talent, man. He's got some phenomenal talent. But
that's what I say about a lot of guys in our hobby. There's levels, right? And you got people like Chuck and then Robert, and they're just a level above everybody else when they start doing stuff. And you're looking at it, you're like, oh shit, this is amazing. You're just like looking back, you're like, wow. And
I couldn't sew to save my life. I tried to do a Fallschirmjäger jump smock back in the around 2000. I don't know how you could do it, but I did it. I sewed my finger.
Oh man, yeah, I can sew a little bit, but not great. If I practice maybe a little more, I have my mom's trying to teach my wife how to sew, but I don't know if that's going to go.
My dad, he could sew. He had an industrial sewing machine, and he could sew like canvas and stuff. But yeah, I didn't get that at all. I tried to do a bone sack Fallschirmjäger jump smock, and it looked like a blind monkey on acid had made it. It was just all over the place, man. I tried to do the little pouches that are right there, and it was, oh my God. My wife was like, just stop. This is disgraceful.
Stop and hire that shit out.
Just stop. Yeah, and luckily I did find somebody who made she ended up making me jump smocks, and she made me Panzer wraps, German Panzer wraps.
Shit.
Yeah, and phenomenal, just fantastic job. I wish she could sew to this day, but that's when I got. This is before I even worked for Cotswold. I got Paul Walmsley, which Paul Walmsley was like the camo god. He was the one who came out successfully with silk screen printed, not shrink wrap, splinter camo. And then he also did, I think it's called Sumpfmuster, the tan and water, whatever you want to call it, March camo, German March camo. And I bought some of his fabric, and then I gave it to the lady, and I made 10 cents, and I thought I was the shit, man. I was like, yeah, I'm there. I wasn't shit. I just knew how to talk to people.
Do you remember back, would have been the early 2000s, late 90s? There was a site that you could buy 1/6 camo on. You could buy the JPEG.
Yeah.
Print it off.
Mm-hmm.
I have a disc of that camo somewhere in my house. It was on a CD, right?
Yep.
And I've got it, and I can't find it. I know it's in my house somewhere, but you can, if I ever find it, you can upload your own designs to Spoonflower. And I have some really cool camo I bought off this cat.
Yeah.
Because Spoonflower will print your camo if you upload it.
Yeah. Mark Cole created some of his own camo, and he had Spoonflower make it for him. That's how he got around to doing that. So
that's awesome. Let me ask you this. So as far as new stuff, have you guys looked at, I know you guys said you looked at, I think you posted one time you looked at doing a muscle body style figure. Have you looked at doing an updated muscle body, or the tooling be too expensive?
I haven't, and the reason being is because there's another person by the name of Jason Shiremeyer, and he is with White Elephant Toys.
Right.
And Jason was the guy that worked with Steve Stovall to bring back Super Joe,
right,
which they had to change back to Adventure Command. Long story there. And so he re-engineered the Super Joe body, and so he was going to re-engineer the Adventure Team body. And I sent him the Guy per Man muscle body, because to me, the Guy per Man muscle body is so far superior to the Adventure Team one.
It's way more solid.
It's way more solid. It has a pop and lock connection system. It doesn't have those elastics, and the neck actually will twist, because you put the head on there and you can swivel it. I don't know where he's at with that. In fact, I reached out to Jason yesterday or today, and I haven't heard back from him. But I know he was working on it. He did the Super Joe heads in 1/6 scale, which we carry,
Those are great.
and we did the early Combat Joe heads, which we carry. I know he has like 5 or 6 other. He had some of the later Takara Combat Joe head sculpts that are more realistic that came out in the 80s. I know he's working on that, and then he was working on other different head sculpts. But then he ended up working on with Steve on the Gore figure, which was the same scale as the Gore. It just didn't have the electrical workings and everything else like that. But and the reason I say all this was I was gonna, I was tinkering with it when he announced that he was going to do it. I just backed off and I was like, listen, I'll help you. I'll help you to get you whatever you wanted. So I've seen all the designs. I've seen the mock-ups, and they're beautiful. And they're supposed to be the way it's supposed to be because we sell the muscle bodies from Spain, from Hobby Crash, from Wanma, but they're not cheap. I think what are we charging, like $49.99 for? Yeah. His will be considerably cheaper. Like I want to say his will probably be like $30, but not $30, $20 cheaper.
I've always wanted I love the muscle body. I just wanted one with a little more range of motion. You know what I'm saying? Like a little more elbow and knee bend, like because those they don't still have. I don't think they really have quite the range of motion as a vintage one. As far as
no, they don't.
And that's what I've always wanted somebody to do is to take the muscle body and just slightly improve the elbow knee joints.
And that's what he was working on because he hated how some of the fit was.
I don't like it.
He even, like I said, the Guyperman body to me has a little bit better range of motion. I like the Action Man muscle body. It's just when you take the shirt and pants off, take the shirt and the pants, he looks goofy as hell. But you put clothing on it, he does really good.
Yeah.
He's got a weird looking torso for me. I don't know. But you put an outfit on him, it doesn't matter. But yeah, I love the Action Man bodies. Speaking of which, I went to a show in 2016. Alan Dawson had invited me to come do a show over in Colville, which is where Palatoy used to be.
Oh, wow.
And we got to do the show. And hold on a second. Yes, ma'am? Well, I'm in here because I'm talking to Jeff. It's okay. See, Jeff said hi. It's okay. Just the dogs that they run around, that's fine.
Just a couple dudes talking toys.
Yeah. With 5,000 people watching us.
I wish.
We're just okay. So anyway, I went over there, and so before I went, I flew over to Madrid, to Spain, to meet with Juanma, and I got to see all the stuff he had. Phenomenal. He hasn't even touched half the stuff he has. I mean, he has the tooling or whatever for the adventure team for the helicopter.
Oh, shit.
He's got this. He got the skids and everything. The only thing he's missing is the mechanism to make the rotor go around. And I was like, brother, if you just manufactured the yellow skids, you'd make a bankroll. Yeah, you'd make a fortune. So I got to hang out with him, and I got to see his Guyperman collection and his vintage collection. He has an immense Madelman collection. But then I flew over to Colville, and Alan picked me up and flew into not Manchester, Birmingham, the land of where Ozzy Osbourne came from.
Black Sabbath, baby.
Yeah, and everybody there sounds like Ozzy Osbourne. It's crazy. They're like, yeah, that's it's even the women.
That's those coal factories.
No lie. So he picks me up and we go to Colville, which again is another coal factory, and they had. I'm in a small room. I get to meet Bob Brecken, who's the guy who created the Kung Fu Grip, and then I was like, Bob was amazing. I got to do some shopping, and Action Man over there is so cheap, man.
Really?
It's so cheap. Yeah.
Still?
Yeah. Well, back in 2016 it was. Let me put it this way. I bought some stuff there, and then I wanted to buy some more, but I had a real small backpack with me. I didn't go, full tilt boogie with all these suitcases and stuff. And so I ended up getting rid of my socks and my underwear. so I could fit some more Action Man back into my
Hey,
backpack.
I admire that hustle. I would have done the same thing.
Oh man, I was like deodorant. I can get more deodorant. You know,
Cheap
I
is
can,
cheap in the U.S. Cheap.
yeah. So the only thing I regretted was we finished the show when we went to this Indian restaurant, Indian buffet. It was called Balti Towers, and my wife's shaking her head at me. And I love Indian food, man.
I do too. I do too.
You put some curry in front of me or something like that. So I'm just eating that stuff up. I'm like, "Nom, nom, nom," and they had like 5 different types of lamb curry or whatever. And so I eat it all up, and I ditched all my gear. It's just basically me, my passport, and a bunch of Action Man stuff, and the good shorts that I had. And I get on the airplane, and it's like a 9-hour flight. And about 1 hour in, that's when I regretted eating Indian food.
You're like, oh shit, literally shit.
Literally shit. Yeah, it was just like I'm just sitting in the chair, and I'm just, life is great, man. I got some primo Action Man stuff. I got some of the Space Rangers, and then I got bloop, 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 and I'm like trying to get that seatbelt, man. Yeah. So yeah, if you ever travel internationally, make sure you don't eat Indian food the night before you do a 9-hour flight. But yeah, the stuff was so cheap. I was like a kid in a candy store there. And this is what's crazy. So I set up as Cotswold. I have a very small table because basically it's, I shipped it over to Alan beforehand. And so I ship a ton of kilts, which we no longer have, because I thought kilts would be the hottest commodity. You know what the hottest commodity there was?
Huh.
Fighter pilot helmets.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Huh.
I don't know.
Thought that.
I don't know. I don't know if it's. I don't know if they never made them. I don't know. I know they did the scramble helmet. They use them on different things. I just don't know if they did enough fighter pilot helmets. But I came home with no fighter pilot helmets at all from that show. They just love that, and I came back with all of those kilts. They didn't want anything to do with kilts or whatever.
No shit.
Yeah. Now, keep in mind, yeah, I'm not in Scotland. I'm in England, and they don't exactly have love for each other.
They're stereotyping all these people wearing kilts. Are like, this son of a bitch. I don't want kilts or kilts.
Yeah, I don't want kilts. I want my driving cap when I want to play rugby or whatever.
I want an RNF helmet.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it was totally cool because just to be able to buy that stuff. But that's the thing about what I do, man. It's like, it's like the Men's Warehouse, or not in Men's Warehouse. What was, Melissa? What's the one with the guy with the hairpiece? I'm not only the president. I'm not only a customer, but I'm also the president. Hair Club for Men.
Hair Club for Men.
You and I don't have that problem.
No.
But that's how I am. I'm like, I'm not only in fact, when I went to go work for Tina, I told her to make sure that in my employment clause that she always paid me my paycheck and never deducted anything that I wanted out of my paycheck, because if that was the case, I would never make money. Man. Dude, I mean, you walk in, I mean,
I could imagine.
I've become desensitized to it a little bit, but when I get the clothing that's sewn for us from the different ladies who sew for us, it's like Christmas all over for me,
Yeah.
Because I get to see this stuff and and then play with it and all like that jazz. So yeah, it's never work if you're enjoying what you're doing, and I definitely enjoy what I do because
you do an amazing job. And like I said, we'll wrap this up. But
sorry,
this has been great. We'll do this again. We'll have to come back this coming fall for sure and see what's going on. But
definitely.
No, I think it's great. Everything you guys do. It's such, like I said, I bought a ton of stuff. I love buying all the stuff. I always feel like when I buy something off you guys, I have to make a photo story for it because that's what I do. I just love to buy that stuff. I'm like you. I just love to get everything. Unfortunately, you can't always get everything, but you want to get everything. And so as we wind it down, is there anything you want to tell everybody what's coming from Cotswold or what you got going on or?
Two things. We touched upon it lightly at the end of this month on the 27th, 20th, and 29th, where I am, Cotswold is the title sponsor. We're working in conjunction with the DFW G.I. Joe Collectors Club, putting on the DFW G.I. Joe and Action Figure Show. And what's cool about that show is we try to show love for everybody, all the different scales. But If you're a 12-inch collector, I'll be there, obviously. Ace Allgood will be there with his stuff. There's a gentleman by the name of, um, oh God, we'll just call him Mark. He's in the back. He always has $6 Million Man. He has Adventure Team. He has 1960s. He has Big Jim. He has stuff like that. And then we have Boba Joe's. He has 12-inch stuff back there. Mark Pashinsky. He's coming all the way from Arizona. He has a plethora of 12-inch stuff. I mean, both new and old, Dragon, BBI. Corey Lord, he's from Georgia. He comes to the show all the time, type of stuff, 12-inch stuff. Scott Wild will be there. If you ever want to get an interesting character, get Scott. I've known Scott forever. Scott goes back into like 96, 97. He got my first talkers. He would get talkers. And he's going to be doing a workshop on Friday for the Commander's package holders where he's going to show everyone how to repair a talker body.
Oh, cool.
And how to repair a muscle body. Ooh. And we're going to actually have the camera above him to kind of show what he's working on. And then Ruben Bartram's going to be doing building a diorama. And you give him styrofoam, the guy can make buildings and ruins and just amazing stuff. And then Base is going to do a panel on Saturday, and then we got some 3 3/4 guys talking about stuff. But then what's really cool, and this is something I've really been kind of focusing on as of late, Kurt Groen, who worked at Hasbro, was the guy who was working on the Hall of Fame series and the Classic Collection series.
Oh. And
so we're on Sunday, we will be having the panel, and he's going to be doing a panel on the generals, the Classic Collection generals, Lee, Grant, all those guys, Washington. But then he's also going to cover one of the adventures of, I think he's doing the White Tiger set. Ooh. So he's going to segue into the adventures of G.I. Joe, which he was responsible with. And so because those kids that grew up with Classic Collection and such like that in Hall of Fame, they're getting older now too. So we're just showing the love for G.I. Joe as much as we can for that show, and we've been slowly nurturing and growing and having fun. Cotswold, man, I've been busy. We are. Let me see. I told you about the Air Force uniform, dress blue uniform set. This kind of a stayover from our 60th anniversary series. We're doing that. We are also doing we did the French Foreign Legion, which has been a very popular one, like the Action Man version. But we are also going to be doing a modern version where he has a FAMAS rifle. He'll have a beret and everything like that, but he will kind of look a little bit like the Classic Collection French Foreign Legion guy, but he'll have a few differences added. So there's that project. We talked about the Green Beret uniform set. With these 3 new people that are sewing for us, you're going to see a lot more variety in the uniforms, especially as we were talking about doing more kind of land adventure / man of action / adventure type of shirts and pants with the 1 pockets. And
nice.
What is going on with Jim? God, what isn't going on with Jim? I've been working with Jim on doing. He'd already been doing the space capsule display stand that is red and blue. I'm working with Jim to do other display stands for like the blue or the orange submarine, the white submarine, the Adventure Team submarine. Yeah,
the sea sled, the sea sled.
Yeah,
that would be really cool.
So we want to do the 60 sea sleds. We're going to build a thing for that. We also want to do the 1970 sea sled, the white one or the yellow one. We're going to have a thing that will hold it. We're also working on to have a stand to hold the Seawolf, which, I mean, in reality, the Seawolf kind of displays itself, but we kind of want to play with it where it can hold it up and kind of maybe have it at an angle a little bit, denote a little bit of action. I'm working with him on that. I'm working with him on those 2 items that we're going to be working with the Adventure Team guy, the designer, on that. I just got in. We're going to be retiring the hover pods that Keith Holmes were making for us. The kind of the enthusiasm behind that kind of died off. He's talking about redoing it, so it's a bit of an antiquated design. But what we're doing for anybody is we're going to have an upgrade kit that's going to have two 30 cal machine guns with drum mags, and then two rocket pods. So if you have an existing one that doesn't have that, you're going to up armor that bad boy to where it's going to have 6 rockets and 2 machine guns.
Oh shit!
And it's pretty nuts. The machine guns come from the adversary's hover pod, and the rocket pods come from the Action Man hover pod. So we said, screw it, we're going to go full kit out there. Jim brought, he has that one, it's kind of like an adventure team console. It's like red and yellow. I think he has it on. He brought one by. I'm going to photograph it. That's super cool. We're going to be carrying that. We're going to be recarrying all of his kits that go onto the mobile support vehicle, which is phenomenal.
Yep.
Had you had one of those?
I don't know if I have one of those.
It's the up armor kit. So if like you had a mobile support vehicle, you just get rid of the bubble, or you didn't have the bubble, you put that on top of.
No, I have not bought one of those yet, but I've got one. I'm going to redo to get one. Yeah.
You got to get one. They're just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. But the other thing, and this is one thing I worked on. Okay, so you had the gun that was on the Big Trapper.
Yes, we've talked about this.
Yeah, so the back of it has that 30 cal machine gun, but it's he reproduced that one. I went to him and I said, "Can you make me a tripod for this thing?" So he built the tripod for it.
That's cool.
And then I was like, "That's pretty cool." I was like, "Okay, can you make it AT by taking each tripod leg and putting circles in it, just like they had it on the Pursuit Craft?"
That's
dope. So he did that one, and so he brought me the mock-up for that one, because I was like, okay, other people had, the 30 cal or whatever, but G.I. Joe's adventure team, they're an adventure team, so that we're going to introduce that. Another cool concept that Jim is working on with me is we introduced years ago from Randall Wall with Art Lab. We did these kits for the Foot Lockers where you could put the little components in there. Right. And we had the Adventure Team kit, we had the Atomic Man kit, and we had the Super Joe kit.
Yep.
Jim is making a kit that will fit inside of it that's 3D printed, but it'll hold all those things like the seismograph and all the other things inside of there. So it'll be like a 3D printed, but you'll have all the different, you'll have your hurricane spotter thingamajig that you can put up there on the shelf.
What?
Not the thermal terrain scanner, but what's the seismograph? Because that was just kind of a weird. So it'll fit all into that box. So
that's dope.
It's gonna be super cool. I mean, everybody has a Foot Locker.
I got a ton.
Everybody has a ton of Foot Locker. So I thought that was really cool. We're still bringing back. I talked to Randall. We put in an order. We're still bringing back his kits, but his are kits. You have to. He has, you have to have knowledge how to put it together, but we're bringing back that. Sean, we pretty much know what we're doing with Sean, because he showed most of his stuff already. Jim, I think that's it, man. I do know you were talking about Japanese stuff. I do know we've had some people asking us, this is totally off of Joe Trail. A Microman from Takara.
Henshin cyborg bodies.
No. Okay, well, I'll tell you that. Okay, Takara is making Microman again, but it's only for the Japanese market. But we are trying to get around that. So, you remember the Pharaoh guy that came in the sarcophagus?
Yeah, for sure.
They're doing that one. They're doing Biotron, and they're doing just the basic one. Yep. And I am trying to go through different channels so we can bring those in the States, because I was a huge Micronauts fan back in the 70s.
Me too. Love them.
But to get back to the other one, yes. Once all this craziness goes away, and once I get my loan paid off, which I pay $4,000 a month to the bank for my bank loan, I have less than 2 years. Once I get that done, I'm going to have a little bit more discretionary money, and we are going to be doing our version of Henshin Cyborg.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So
that's dope, dude.
We sent them a Henshin Cyborg for them to work with. We have to redo the neck and the head and part of the chest. Everything else is already done. So we're going to do a Henshin Cyborg, and in different colors.
Awesome. I'll tell you a request. I think I've talked to Jim about this, and Sean's out there in the comments, but the Big Trapper gun's cool. But I always felt like we needed a few more mission critical, different weapons, like a net gun that would fit down that socket.
Sean's made it.
He's with the light. Is it the light deals? Do those fit in there?
No, Sean made his own. Is Sean still here? Is Sean still talking?
He's still in the comments. Sean.
All right. So not only did Sean design it, because I was, you're talking about me going through phases. I was going through an intruder phase.
Yep.
And so what Sean developed is he developed a net gun that had a void inside of it. And then it had 4 outgoing spaces for rockets. And the rockets were connected to a ring. The rings were connected to a net.
Cool.
And then, we didn't have a propulsion, but basically you would take the 4 rockets out with the net and you would capture, excuse my alarm system.
We're fine.
They would capture the intruder. Sean never, we designed it where you could, we had an adapter where you could put it on the training tower. And we had it where, my goal, what I really wanted to do is I wanted to build a setup where you would put it on the back of an ATV where a guy would be sitting in the chair, which would be the little car chair, whatever that thing was called. Sean was not a fan of the netting and how it would fit for the size it would have to do an intruder. We did make that set for Atlanta for one of the Joe Lantas.
Oh,
and it
cool.
was, I think we called it Hunt for the Pygmy Wolf. And the reason he was on board with that was because we were shooting it at a pygmy wolf, so we didn't need as much netting.
Hey, man.
But the design is there. And that design, if I remember correctly, and Sean, don't get mad at me, eventually led into what we were doing with that Super Joe 1/6 scale Super Joe cannon, which he used a flashlight.
Yep.
He put a lens in the front, but you had it where you could either shoot it on a tripod or you could hold it like a minigun.
Yep.
And so that concept, from my recollection, came from the net gun, and I want to do it. I don't know if we're going to have to expand the void inside of it or whatever, but he developed it.
So many options.
Yeah, it's just, like I said, I was going to do this whole line of intruder stuff, and Sean was on board. In fact, if you notice, we did decal sheets for ATVs called Intruder Hunters. And then we had the decal sheets for the command or for the training center, so like that. And that was going to be one of them, was that net gun. But I mean, it's done. It's done it. We've offered it with the set. It's just not intruder friendly yet, per se.
That's awesome. I can't wait. I can't wait to see what you guys got coming, man. This has been an awesome conversation, Greg. I really appreciate you coming on. Let's do it again. Let's do it again.
Definitely, man. Dude, you could have a 6-hour podcast with me.
Oh, I could. I could probably do a 6-hour podcast, but we probably.
My wife rolls her eyes over here.
She's like, I don't think so. Well, man, this has been amazing tonight. I had a great time. Before we go, tell everybody where they can find you.
In my kitchen right now.
Yeah.
No, you can find me at Cotswold Collectibles at gijoelite.com.
Awesome, man. Well, this has been great. Sorry we didn't get to you guys in the comments. We just had too good of a conversation going, but this has been fantastic, man. Good luck at Dallas. I can't wait to see what you guys have. I'll check out. Hopefully, there's a lot of people doing live streams, and there'll be a lot of pictures on Instagram. Probably Instagram and probably Facebook and stuff, and I'll be checking that out. So,
I would probably say Facebook. I'm a little bit old school.
I know. Hang around back in the back room real quick before we we'll get ourselves out of here.
All right, man.
Thanks, Greg. Appreciate it,
easy,
man. Guys, what a great conversation tonight. This has been nothing but bangers on the live streams this spring. Again, thank you to everybody who's decided to join me and take their time to be on here and have great conversations with me. I appreciate it. You guys out there, hope you're doing great. Like I said at the beginning, be looking for us to come back around August for our regularly scheduled programs. We're going to have a lot of great guests. It's going to be really fun. Have a great summer, guys. And in the meantime, you know how it goes. Keep living the adventure, and cheers.